Welcome to the Town of Richmond special meeting of Water and Sewer Commission, March 30th, 2026. Any public comments? Grilling season already?
Yeah, and beautiful spring day.
Yeah, it is a nice day, wet out there. Any addition?
Steve's smiling, so that's a better sign.
Oh, it's only a few things broke this past week. Any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
I think we should take a minute to talk about next week when we meet with the housing committee, because I've been watching their videos and I think we should just take a minute to know what they're coming up with.
Weren't they supposed?
I think they were supposed to be contacting you, but it'd be good for some of the rest of us to maybe go over what
Let's
they.
talk about it now. So they're going to,
We could do it under our next agenda.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I just think we should.
I wanted to take a deeper dive in the next agenda anyway, based
At
on
the
this
end,
meeting.
at the
Okay.
end of our
I
meeting.
think that'd be a perfect
Perfect.
time to add in, what do we need to be prepared for?
Great. I
Yeah.
think that's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Okay, moving right along. Review and discussion of draft fiscal year 27 water and wastewater budget. Josh, you'd like to lead? please?
Sure. Let me make sure I can share my screen here. That's right.
Oh, there's great. So that's.
I'll set up a booby trap for you.
Okay, so this is our first review of the budget. I guess just to give a little bit of overview on sort of process and timeline. That's really small. It looks really small. Well, maybe it's as good as. I don't know why it seems so. This is really small. Is there a way to?
Or is that a PDF or a
So
Excel?
there we go. That might be. A little better. You know, I can't see anybody. Oh, no, there we go, on the side. Is that better than the other one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that seems small.
Yeah, I think that one's better.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, we'll just do side by side. Yeah, let me. Okay. All right. So this is our first pass of the budget. We'll look at water, wastewater, restricted funds and unrestricted funds at the end of this. This all really builds up to our annual meeting, which is usually held at the third Tuesday in May. We'll probably put that onto the next agenda to set the date for the meeting. Just as a reminder for the commission and the public, this is not going to go to a vote of the public or a vote of the customers. The budget is voted on and approved by the Water and Sewer Commission at the annual meeting. Certainly though, we'll have probably 3 or 4 different budget meetings. Any customer is welcome to attend those meetings, provide feedback, ask questions. The more we get, the better the budget's going to be. And then at annual meeting, we'll do a presentation and have a chance for some final questions. Unlike the Australian vote on the town budget, we can make changes at the annual meeting. If there's a good change that the board wants to make, you can go ahead and do that at annual meeting. Tonight, we'll look at the budget. We don't have sample rates just yet. What we do is we look at water usage over the last 12-month period. So we wait till the first quarter billing is completed, which will be the end of this week. We'll have usage for the third quarter. And then we'll look back at the last 12 months ending this past March. So basically you'll go from April 1st last year through March 31st this year for usage. And that's when we're able to divide it out between residential, commercial government, and school. And that's really when we sort of, the rubber meets the road, when we start to look at the rates and we decide, you know, what's too high, what can we do with unrestricted funds, how can we kind of help balance that budget and keep the rates where we want them to be. So tonight, really my goal is to go through this. Connie and I and Steve spent some time looking at past actuals, looking at what Steve is projecting for the FY27 based on different costs going up or down. Some conservation he's doing, you'll see in wastewater, we're actually saving a bit of money with some things in wastewater. So wanted to get some initial feedback from the commission this evening. If there's anything that you have questions on, or it looks like, you know, out of whack to you, let us know. And then we'll look at the next meeting, which we might have to wait till April 20th to come back with rates because we probably won't have a chance to really get all that data in time for next week's meeting. But this is a good first step. So with that, I will go through some changes. I've highlighted some changes on the water and wastewater budgets. Not every single change, but just some as we were going through it to try to bring to the attention and give a brief overview to the commission. So a few notes regarding items that affect both water and wastewater. Wages and benefits have been adjusted on anticipated FY27 wages, with the wage grid increasing by 3% and employees going up a step on that grid. We also increased Brad Snow. He did obtain his grade 5 wastewater license.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Congratulations.
For Greg, or for Brad. I think it was 2 Fridays ago. He passed the test, so now he's good to go there.
How many points did he get?
72.
Nice.
The 70, so he's passed. So that also, you'll see later on that we removed the contracted operator from wastewater. We no longer need that. Administrative support from the town is in both budgets. That increased slightly due to wages from the town support staff increasing. And then user revenue, as we look at revenue, the user revenue, why is it bouncing on me? User revenue up here, we always fill that in last. After we fill in these other revenues and all other expenses, whatever we need to make the budget balance 0, that's where we fill in the user revenue. So in order to change that, we would need to add additional revenue here or reduce budget expenses down below. So we're in water right now. Uniforms increased from 500 to 750 due to increase in costs in general and just a need to continually buy some uniforms for the staff. Permits, fees, licenses increased from, oh, where did I put that? Go, right here.
It's right there. It's 1,000.
Increased from, or actually decreased from 1,900 to 1,000 to better match the actuals of the past couple of years. General insurance increased from 6,800 to 7,300 to match the current calendar year FY26 billing. Heat has increased to better match the actuals. The audit also increased, and that's based on the actual cost of the FY27 audit.
Can
That's
we
split.
go back to the audit?
I was just gonna say that's split 30%, or 33% to water sewer, 66% to the town. That's based on feedback from the auditors about how much time they spend on each department. And then we split that 30% water, 70% wastewater.
I mean, I understand why we have to have the audit and why we do it, but the cost of it is really going up and up and up in the budget.
Well, we have, I mean, just for some history, we bid that out, I think, we're in the 2nd or 3rd year. We bid it out a couple of years ago with 3-year options. So we had 1 year, 2 years, 3 years options in the bid from the auditors. We went with the lowest cost option. The cost of audits in general has been increasing quite a bit. So
Are
there's
towns
less and less.
required to be audited every year?
Yeah, and there's less firms that actually perform the audits, and the one that we're going with. So we used to be with Sullivan and Powers a few years ago, and their cost when we rebid it was a lot higher. And then we switched to RHR. Their cost was actually lower than what we paid the year prior from Sullivan Powers, but they've continued to increase. I think this is our 2nd round of bidding with RHR. They also continue to expand because they're one of the few firms that's doing it. They're based out of Maine. They've heard more and more Vermont municipalities are going with them.
I'll just observe that I've heard from some public and nonprofit organizations, when they put out a bid for ours, they get between 0 and 1 proposals, which is illustrative of the shrinking market or supply.
Yeah, I've heard also CPA firms are having a difficult time actually filling positions as well. Not as many people want to do that.
Yep. So moving on in water testing, we increased from 2,500 to 5,300, due mostly to a requirement to test for PFAS 4 times a year, which is going to cost about $2,200 per year.
Oh,
Moving on to pumps and tanks, we reduced that from 4,000 to 1,000. We don't have any anticipated purchases, but we do want to keep something there in case we need it. Water line repairs, we reduced from 15,000 to 10,000. Mostly this is in anticipation of replacing the oldest water line this summer on Tilden, remaining portion of Bridge Street and over on Cochrane Road. Asphalt repair goes hand in hand with water line repairs. The only time we need asphalt is when we are doing an emergency repair, so anticipating less there as well. And we did add a loan payment of $23,000 anticipation that we're going to be paying back the loan for Tilden, Cochrane, and Bridge Street. So I'll pause there for water, and we can look at water revenue expenses if there's any questions or anything I didn't cover.
The loans, just looking at, I don't know if it's really important, but when do some of these loans sunset?
So they're all, you can see when they're maturing here in the notes
Oh,
on the left side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nothing is soon. The closest one is the Jericho Road loan, which is FY 32, but even that's still 5 years away.
I know, I won't be here for most of those. So.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Maybe 2032, I'll be all right.
I did have a question on the wastewater side.
Yeah.
About the
We're not
gateway. I know, do you want me to wait? About the gateway engineering?
Mhm.
How long do we pay for that for? It said it starts in 27. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, so that one, I think we ended up, I think it was a 50% forgiveness, because all we ended up doing was the planning. So, and I think it's only, I can find out for you, but I think it's only like a 5-year payback. Because I think we borrowed about. I
If
think
it was 5 years,
12.
it'd be like 7.
Yeah, it was like 12 to
Well-
15,000, I think is the total we spent on that, but I can get that more information.
It's okay, I just didn't know. if
No, it's a
gonna-
good one. We
I was
didn't
wondering.
actually put in the amount that it matures yet, so we do need to fill that in too.
Yeah,
And to make it that a different color, so I know what to, actually make it yellow, yellow's fine. I'll make sure we get that. Steve?
well, we have that East Main one that's maturing in a couple of years or.
Go back on water? Or,
Wastewater.
We're in wastewater there.
yeah, I just moved back.
Okay, yeah.
So we have the East Main here, yep.
Might be a question more for Steve. Steve, once the 20-year study of upgrades, refurbishments have been made, do you see less overtime?
Less what?
Overtime?
You would hope.
I mean, I mean, we have so many breaks.
Well, I mean, we really haven't had a lot of breaks. It's been really like one a year. I mean, on the water side, on the wastewater side, I really try to keep the breakdowns, even if they're broke down. You know, we don't try to have a lot of overtime.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I just assume that that's one of the drivers for overtime.
it is, but it's also the weekend testing
Oh, okay,
that drives that.
right.
That's 6 hours a weekend.
Right.
That's overtime.
That's good to know.
I mean, Kendall kept his overtime down by, he worked the weekends
Since he was salary.
and took off days in the week or
Or not,
Didn't-
sometimes.
didn't come in until late, you know.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
that was his thing. We rotate it so that everybody works a weekend.
Right, okay, no, just more.
And then I feel that it keeps everybody fresh on being able to do testing and keep up to date with what's going on in the plant and know what's happening.
Right.
It gives you a little bit of a break, so you don't have to do it every weekend.
Right.
I never knew how Kendall.
Huh?
I never knew how Kendall was able to sustain that.
Well, I mean, if I'm doing testing, I can do testing on a weekend in about two hours.
Still, to be tied there every single week.
Yeah.
But you know, it's about 3 hours for one of the guys or
We
girl.
want to walk through wastewater? or-
So on wastewater.
We still had a couple of things in capital reserves underwater. We
Yeah,
have
we'll get,
underwater.
you wanna go to reserves next?
Oh, are we doing those at the end?
We can go either way. What,
Well, it's however these guys
you
go.
guys wanna go to the reserves and stick with water for a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. So this chart shows unrestricted water capital water short-term capital and distribution. So essentially the unrestricted is the unassigned funds for water. Let me make that a little bit bigger. I'm sorry, it's so small.
There's a slider at the bottom, right?
Is there a
too.
slider?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bottom right.
No, that'd be so much easier. Much better. Thank you.
That's how I do it.
No, that's good. I feel like I always overlook that. I feel like I know it's there, but never remember. So unrestricted is the unassigned fund. So that's money that's not committed to one of our reserve funds. It's basically cash on hand. So for water, that started the end of the year, $172,000. So that's essentially the beginning of the FY 26 balance. And then what we always do is try to project where are we going to be at the end of FY 26. So we have budgeted for the reimbursement for the water service line inventory of about $4,300. The July 2024 flood reimbursements have started to come in. We're anticipating $46,000. Jericho Road bond interest reimbursement. There's always a small correction every year that they sort of give us back some interest that we've paid on the bond. Upgrade electrical control panel in the pump house, anticipating $15,000 cash outlay for that. We did have $4,600 in VOSHA upgrades that we had to do as a result of the audit this year from VOSHA. So that gives us a projected end of the year balance of $203,000. The projected water budget is $408,000, so 15% of that is $61,000. Auditors have said a good rule of thumb is to keep about 15% of your budget on hand. So that would leave $142,000 in excess of that budget. And that money is something that we could put into the budget to help offset rates if you'd like to. But again, I think a lot of those conversations will come once we start to look at rates and see where those are going. Going over to the right here, these are our reserve funds. So we have water capital. It started out at $96,000. We have $10,000 from the budget going into it. It'll end up at $106,000 at the end of the year. Same thing with short-term capital, started at 155, adding 20, getting to 175. Distribution started at 61. We're going to add 20 and get to 81,000. We don't have any projected or anticipated use of either of these, any of these capital funds in water. It will be a different story when we get to wastewater.
Water looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm trying to pick one little project each year to keep us going forward on upgrading stuff. And I didn't get the $15,000 control panel built last year. So we're just carrying that over to this year. But I'm trying to move forward and keep things at the water house improving all the time.
Thank you.
That's for the influent pumps, control panel.
No, that control panel is for the water house. The water house,
Across the river.
yeah,
Okay.
two different,
Sorry.
you don't get those mixed up. The water house control panel is a mess. I mean, you open it up, it's just a bunch of wires not labeled going everywhere, and to make it better, we need a new control panel.
Okay. Good. All right. And just a quick, Josh, just go over water capital, what that goes to. Capital for anything?
Well, I'm trying to think, we haven't spent out of it for a while, but I think it would be like any larger piece, like if we had to replace like a water pump.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Short-term capital?
I wanna get a estimate done sometime in the near future on the condition of the pump for the well, condition of the wet well pump. And then I would really like to get an estimate on how much our well's producing and what the expectancy of it is. So we can plan for the day when that well doesn't produce water. I mean, I'm not hoping that, but I would like to be a little bit more knowledgeable about what's there. There's no records on, it produces X amount of gallons. It's produced every gallon that we've ever needed, but with the way groundwater It is only 35 feet deep. So, you know, it is groundwater. But with the way groundwater could dry up, you know, last summer we had that one time that it didn't produce what I thought it should overnight, so that's when we limited usage and stuff for a while. We were lucky, it came back through the drought all right, but I'd like to know a little more about what condition the pumps are in and what condition the well is, you know, production is in.
Okay. Short-term capital would just be like things that break.
Yeah, I think Steve, I don't know, Kendall used to keep a list of things that he says that were sort of mandated to be in that section of short-term capital. Isn't there sort of
Yeah, I mean,
state looks at as far as making sure you have enough money to replace some of the smaller items that aren't
the
necessarily.
short-term capital is like chlorine pump, the fluoride's been covered by the state. I don't know how that program is still gonna
Yep, I think that program is, I haven't heard is changing.
continue or not, but the you know, there's the fluoride and yeah, the test kits probably could fall under that.
With something that's considered a capital improvement, okay.
Yeah,
And distribution would be the lines.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, okay, so then that's total restriction, okay.
David has his hand raised.
Oh, where's David? Oh, he
There.
does, okay, David, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, David. Is he muted? I hope he's not driving.
I hope we parked.
Can't hear you.
David, yeah. Can't hear you, David. Is your phone?
Okay, we'll try again.
He just took it.
I think that's what he means.
Oh, maybe he didn't. You want to speak, is your phone maybe on mute? Because you're not muted on the computer.
What about now?
There you go. Now we got
Hey,
you.
we can hear you.
Okay, it's the Toyota arguing with the phone again. On the well, we did a very comprehensive assessment, Steve, not long before you came on board. So we should have those records available. If nothing else, we'd have the vendor information and they could look it up. But we had a very comprehensive assessment of the well not that long ago.
Okay, because I haven't seen anything in any of the records at the treatment plant. And we've looked extensively. The last records that we found were from when the well was not located where it is now, so that's quite a few years ago.
David, would that have been maybe in conjunction with the reservoir project
Probably.
or around the same time?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I can look through my.
I'll
records
look
and-
into that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can look at local minutes and see if there's anything that the because the commission would have talked about it, so maybe we
Yeah.
can scour the minutes and see if we can find something there too. Okay,
All right, thank you.
yep.
Any other questions on water?
thanks, David.
Wastewater?
Okay,
Or do we want to go to fire protection?
let's go to wastewater.
Okay,
So again, uniforms, a slight increase from 1,000 to 1,200. Association dues, a slight increase from 800 to 1,500. System permits, certifications and licenses increased from 1,200 to 1,500. General insurance increased from about 17,775 to 19,251. Biosolids chemicals is decreasing to better match actuals, which were lower due to buying in bulk. It reduces the price and a reduction in what we need to use based on a better analysis of what the system needs. So kudos to Steve and the crew for that. Electricity for the pump station increasing from 12,000 or 1,250 to 1,625. The water for wastewater treatment facility decreased from 32,000 to 20,000 due to a reduction in the amount of water used in the wastewater treatment facility. So again, systems improvements by Steve and the crew. The audit here again increased from about $4,000 to $6,500. Contracted operator reduced from 41,340 to 0, thanks to Brad receiving his or obtaining his grade 5 license. Biosolids disposal reduced from 140 to 120,000 due to drier solids with the installation of the new press, which reduces the volume and the weight, and eliminated. We also have eliminated a trailer fee from CSWD. We used to get charged for a trailer replacement fee that they phased out. So those two combined for $20,000 reduction. Small equipment purchases went from 700 to 1,000. Building maintenance, we are going to increase because we do continue to see increased costs for the building from 1,000 to 5,000. Wastewater facility repair increased from 15,000 to 20,000. If anybody's been paying attention, that we continue to have weekly increases there. Biosolids facility repair increased from 15,000 to 25,000. Again, before we get that 20-year study complete, we're going to continue to have some failing equipment. Phosphorus loan payments, which were about $22,000, has concluded in FY26, will be the last payment. And we have a repayment for engineering for the gateway. Yeah, we talked about that, the 1,360, which I will get some more information on the total and the maturity date of that. So overall, we're looking decent in wastewater. There's a reduction from $920,000 in expenses in FY26 to $845,000 in FY27, which is about $75,000. So for right now, I've put all of that into the savings up here. So you'll see 18% decrease in wastewater revenue, wastewater user revenue. We could talk about, as you look at the rates and we look at, needs going forward, we could take some of that and put some of that into the reserve, knowing we're going to have some larger bills for the 20-year study. But I think that'll be a better conversation once we have some sample rates, so you can really dive in and say, if we did that, where would that take rates? Overall, it looks like there'll be a reduction, which is good news. But how much of a reduction do we want to give versus how much of an increase do we want to have down the line? So we'll pause there before we get into the other side of it. Any questions there? A little bit better in focus. Feels like it's a little fuzzy.
There are a lot of things that we left it status quo that we're working on cutting. One of them is we currently pay 2 phone companies for phone lines at the wastewater treatment plant. We're pretty sure that we can wrap it into one. It was always kept in the past. There was a phone line that's under Waitsfield, and it was only kept under Waitsfield because they offered phone to email when it went to the message. Now Comcast offers that, I believe. We're gonna look into it.
They do.
But that's about $1,000 a year savings if we could drop one phone line. And then there are some other things. There are small increases because the cost of everything is increasing. The one thing I will say, and I was kind of surprised, our chemical, where is that, Josh? So we reduced the biosolids chemical by 10,000. I just got the wastewater chemical. That's the sodium aluminate we use. I have to double check, and I really looked at the bill that just came. We religiously get 1,200 gallons, and this last bill was basically 50 cents a gallon, which is almost. We were paying almost $2 a gallon. And either they made a mistake. I've got to go back and look and see, but I thought we were paying over $2 a gallon. The bill was for 600 and something change that you forwarded to me. And so I got to look into that and find out if that's a mistake or if that's the going rate now.
I would be shocked if it went down $1.50 a gallon.
Yeah,
If it did.
I was really surprised when I looked at it, I was like $600.
Okay, well, that's, yeah. If there's
Um,
savings there, let me know. We can change the budget.
well,
I think there's there.
I mean, they had the gallons right and everything, and then the
Yeah.
math worked, but it was 53 cents a gallon. So I gotta look into that a little more, but we really try to cut where we can. And I think the biosolids disposal and the chemicals were the two big ones, and Brad getting his license saves us $41,000 a year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then the big loan coming off as well.
Yeah.
There's about $22,000 there. So yeah, some good savings in wastewater, which is great because there's gonna be the opposite of that in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe just bank that, don't make any changes.
Well,
Well, that's up to you guys.
that's where, once we see the rates, it'll be
Yeah.
easier to figure out.
Can you pull up the loans again?
Yes.
To look at not just what they are, how much, but when they end.
Yeah. We do have, the next one is East Main Street Planning Loan, which FY 27 is its last year. And then there's two here. This is principal
Three.
and interest. Well, this is the same one. It's just.
Oh, yeah.
An
Yep.
admin fee. So there's two more coming up in FY 32, but it's $34,000.
Helps
So, yeah.
a little.
I think as we dive into the funding, we'll be able to, that's for at our next agenda item, I really want to try to give some good feedback to Oil Tanner about what other numbers we'd like them to run and make sure that they're taking these types of things into account, right? Like when are we going to drop off a loan?
I wonder with the wastewater capital and reserve funds, if there are things that currently could break that we might need to replace before, if we had some money, would we be able to replace things with what's in the upgrade? Some of them, if we had the cash on hand,
Well,
does that make sense?
we are currently doing that.
Right, but so like, would it make sense to not reapply that money back into to offset
I
the
mean-
cost of rates? Would it make more sense to keep it in those reserves, so if more things go, we have the ability to upgrade them if we need to prior to the
So-
big upgrade?
Since the last meeting, we had issues with our influent pump, the new one we installed, and it was control issues. And so we got Tom Allen here. He fixed some things, but we're switching to a radar level detector. That's already installed. He needs to come back to do some programming for it. That is what we're switching to in the upgrade.
Mhm.
That's gonna be about $3,000 by the time we get all done. But in the meantime, our effluent flow control that monitors what we discharge to the river, that died. That is another $3,000. And we are upgrading from the current system to what we would upgrade to in the
Big upgrade.
upgrade. It's going from a Sigma, a 1980s type technology to a radar flow control, a Vega system, and the discussion is directly with the engineers. What are you putting in the upgrade? We're doing it now. So we are still using money out of there, but You know, we're trying to, we're trying not to have things break, but unfortunately, we still are.
But yeah, and I think that is an option to do,
To do.
take that money, put it into wastewater capital. Put it into that reserve. It could be either used now or it could be used for future loan payments.
Okay.
And yeah, given the rate of things breaking that need to be replaced, that might be a good thing to consider.
Well, a list of things that are already broken,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the filter controls, the main controller, the fact that they're piping over ground to get to the dryer from there's stuff that's obviously going to be in the 20-year improvement plan that if we could front end load it is in effect buying down the cost of that 20-year plan.
Right.
So ratepayers should be assured that, you know, it's not either or, it's sort of when.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Said that much more eloquently.
Agreed. It also seems sort of almost disingenuous to have extra money, give it back to the ratepayers, and then charge them even more money a year or two later.
With interest.
Yeah. With interest.
The cost of professional services, the insurance and the audit costs, those aren't going up at the rate of inflation. Those are going up double, 3 times the rate of inflation.
Some of them are, yeah.
It did for farms too.
When's the last time we re-competitively bid the insurance, for instance?
Yeah, it's been a few years. We did it, a few years ago. We go through VLCT and Passive in their insurance. I know that there's interest in doing it again this year. It's quite the process to rebid for the entire town. But it's probably worth biting it off and trying to get it done. And I think we have a lot of the inventory. Like, the biggest part is like we had travelers bidding on it, and they basically wanted to know like everything from how many wrenches to how many dump trucks and everything in between. So putting that inventory together was a bit challenging, but we have some of those templates already. So I think we could
Yeah.
probably give them a better estimate a little quicker.
Do they come and do an inspection as well?
I think they do a little bit, but a lot of it fell on the department heads to go through and say, okay, here's how much we have and here's how much it all costs. But I know that Kathy at the time was the assistant, she was able to I think she built a lot of bid spreadsheets. So it might be a little simpler to go through and say, oh, this is probably, we still have these, here's how much they cost, and this, rather than building from scratch. But yeah, I mean, and when we did it a couple years ago, Passive, I think was, we went with them again. They were either a little cheaper or about the same, I think is where it ended up. But it's worth looking into again.
Do you have a lot of fuel expense?
No.
Okay.
Our fuel expense actually has gone down because we bought the diesel truck. So we get diesel, it costs pretty much from, we fill up at highway and we have a log and we turn it in, but it went from buying, gas for the little Ford Ranger to diesel maybe once a month.
Okay.
Right there, it's about $1,800. The actual last year was about.
Well, that was gas, fuel, oil, everything
That's all,
included in that.
yeah, it's relatively minor compared to the
Yeah.
full $800,000 budget or so.
Okay.
Looking at the restricted funds, same setup here as in water. So unrestricted funds ended the year about $458,000. Included in there was $193,000 in reimbursements that were actually spent out of the wastewater capital, but when they got reimbursed, they ended up in restricted funds. So that was the transfer we had the commission vote on at the last meeting to move that 193 back into wastewater capital where those expenses actually came out of. So that's the reimbursement from the 20-year study. So we've accounted for that in this projection. We did receive $133,000 in reimbursements from the FY24 flood. There's that bond correction again. I think that get a pool of interest and they credit everybody who had a bond through them. We do plan to clean the digester for $7,000. There's a wastewater share, the VOSHA expenses. That was the fines associated with VOSHA. The projected end of year balance is $390,000. The projected budget is $845. 15% of that is $126. So the amount of unrestricted funds in excess of the budget is $263,000. So there again, another option to put back into the budget, or we could propose to put those into one of the capital reserves, again, to sort of save for the future. Basically back to the same conversation we just had, knowing that we're gonna have things to break in the next year or two, that we need to have cash on hand for, as well as future payments for the upgrade.
Does the flood reimbursements go into unrestricted because that's more where they came out of?
Yeah.
We basically just overspent the budget when those came
Those
in.
years. And do we have the discretion to say we want to move money from unrestricted into one of those capital accounts to save for later?
That's part of what you can do, and even if you don't move it, it doesn't ever really go
Go
away.
anywhere.
It sits there. I mean, the only way it would go away is if we overspent the budget in 1 year, then you do eat into that.
Yeah.
That's why it's always good to have a little bit on hand for unexpected expenses such as flood response.
We're not gonna have that problem this year.
Alright, so looking at the reserves, wastewater capital is the most active one. So that started out at 111. We had budgeted to put $10,000 in this fiscal year. There's the transfer back in from unassigned funds or unrestricted funds to reimburse for the money that we actually spent out of that for the capital engineering for the for the engineering for the 20-year study. We had 20-year study FY26 reimbursements of $12,000. We anticipate that's going to come in, so we'll make sure that we get that transferred in FY26. We do still have $70,000 or so in expenses, and there's probably some more coming in. It was just really hard to forecast exactly how much is going to be coming in over the next 3 months. But now we know that those reimbursements turn around fairly quickly. So even if we have another $10,000-$20,000 in expenses, we'll get that back into that account fairly quickly. Influent pump purchase of $34,000. The installation is mostly the electrical for that is $22,000. Small engineering fee. I'm not sure there was like a $93 leftover fee for that. Biosolids facility installation. This is $20,000 for mostly the electrical hookup for the finishing off the press. We do anticipate $10,000 in filters for the wastewater treatment facility. And that leaves us with a total of $169,000 projected at the end of FY26. The other, just to show the other accounts, we don't have any anticipated ins or outs other than the contribution of $10,000 to short-term capital. But I think that covers most of the large anticipated projects that we're working on this year.
Were the filters the big blue round things?
Yeah. So the filters are made up of, there's 24 pie shapes,
Yeah.
filter cloths. I had totally zoned out. I had asked for the money and then I forgot to order them. So we've got a quote coming. I haven't seen it yet, but I put a quote in. I'm pretty sure we'll be under the 10,000. They were like 300 a piece, and that's a little over 7,000. But I had asked for 10 just to make sure. We had those on hand the first flood, and we were able to just change them when the other ones got inundated with mud. The next two floods, we were able to run the filters pretty much regularly, so they didn't get inundated with flood waters. And we didn't have to change them, but it's a nice thing to have on the shelf if we needed them to change them. And there's not really any cleaning of them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any way to clean them. You can't throw them in a washing machine, and they're once they get inundated with silt, they're
They're done.
pretty much toast.
Fire protection?
Yeah, so fire protection is based on a formula. It's 48% of the tank loan, which is $18,000 this year. Used to be 48% of the gap loan. That was the gap, I think the loan between what we would build the tank at and then what the oversize was to provide fire protection for the town. That portion of the loan has been paid off. So there's no longer anything to pay there. And then it's 5% of the water budget. So the total is $38,503. And that is back at, I guess we do, should we go back to water here? with that. Oh, come on. There we go. So that is right here. Our service fees, $38,503. And that is charged in the general budget to the taxpayers. Essentially to pay for water for fire protection that the fire department uses either for training or for putting out fires.
And that's to everyone across the town,
That
correct?
goes to everyone. So you'll see a corresponding expense in the general fund.
The costs related to replacing a damaged hydrant, that's a,
That actually is going towards the driver who hit that hydrant.
okay,
So that insurance will get paid for
Yeah.
there. If a hydrant just goes bad,
Right.
that's
That's-
an expense for the water sewer department, I guess, yeah. In theory, some of that money would go towards that, I guess, because that's really why we have the hydrants, right? It benefits
Yeah.
everybody. So.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. All right, well, we're a quarter of. And we can take a stab at item B or go right to C.
So I got time. How much time do people have that want to look into the rate? and
Okay.
paybacks?
There's no select board meeting.
Yeah, that's
right.
It's a nice thing.
All right,
Right, people might have dinner plans at
Yeah.
7:30, so don't want to hold people too late.
bean soup again tonight later on, so.
My first question would be, are there funding alternatives that we know we don't want
Well, item B, well,
or that we think we don't want that we can?
I think we should go through a process of eliminating things that we
Yeah.
just don't need to be thinking about, right? As a way, things to unclutter our minds. So I think one is the 20-year versus 30 years. So if we're all in agreement, let's just get rid of the 30-year loans.
To avoid being underwater.
I think if it's a 20. That's my personal philosophy is
Well,
you don't pay for something that you're not gonna be able to run
Right.
anymore.
Well, and I think that's part of the challenge is when I look at these loans, you're like, I mean, a lot of stuff's gonna be worn out. So it does, it already puts you in a deficit when those things are worn out and you're still paying on them. It's not reality, right?
Yeah.
And septic rates and septic, I think it's worth it. Is it real to be talking, is it realistic? I should say realistic to be talking about. Can we take, is the market such that we think we can get to 35,000 gallons a day or not? I don't know.
So I went to a roundtable in Montpelier with all the septic receivers. I'm not 100% sure why South Burlington was there. South Burlington currently takes 6,000 gallons a week. And they would prefer not to even take that. They charge a higher rate. So basically, if you want to bring it, we'll take it, but you're paying this rate. Of all of the, and it was pretty much statewide that were there. We are one of only probably one or two that are looking to increase the amount of septic that we take. And mostly that is because we can. We have the capacity, it's not limiting us. Montpelier would look to take more if they could. They max out pretty much now. Montpelier and Richmond handle 35% of all the septic in the state of Vermont.
Wow.
The discussion came up, what about, in their model, they had a list of things, ultimately, they would like a Richmond to have a receiving station out by the interstate. When I brought it up to Eamon, I'm like, where out by the interstate would you like us to put it?
Yeah.
Well, the park and ride is a beautiful spot, and I'm like, I've been here for 4 years and 3 times I've seen cars floating in the parking ride. I really don't think that's a good spot to be putting a processing. They understand that that's really not ever gonna happen.
Realistic. Yeah.
Their model was looking at the perfect world. They understand that, you know, we're kind of stuck where we are. And the ability to take more, we can do it. And, you know, that will be a good thing.
Just for yucks, what do we think the cost of building a receiving station and connecting it to the system up there would be?
19
Just-
million,
Huh?
19 million?
Oh, I wouldn't even, you're looking at least 1.5 million per foot per mile
Of line.
of line just to get there.
Right.
Um,
That's immediately where I was going at multiple
Yeah.
millions. So on
Oh,
top
yeah.
of our challenge of.
And there's
current
no
multiple
place for
millions.
you know, they're looking for wanting it right off the interstate, so it's not, you know, there's no location right there for it.
With the right offer, I bet the little kitchen table bistro would.
Yeah,
Getting a
I
lot.
mean, but they're looking,
Yeah.
you know, their discussion was that. And it's a pie in the sky. It's not ever gonna happen.
Well, how many truckloads a day would that represent? I mean,
What?
if there's not a receiving station, then presumably this stuff is being put on trucks and brought to you, right? Or am I missing?
Well, I mean, yeah, and what the ultimate goal is to eliminate what the state thinks the ultimate goal is to eliminate truck traffic on Esplanade.
So then why don't they just go down the road for the park?
Well, we've had that discussion because it's not paved and we'd have to upgrade it.
What would be the cost to having a line in the parking lot that they could hook up to and pump it to the?
In what parking lot?
The one that floods?
What,
That's right.
that, there again, the one that floods, the one that, you know, you don't want. The playground's there, you don't want trucks pulling in to dump. That's not ideal. You know, in the summer months, we have, you know, sometimes we have 6, 7 trucks backed up, waiting to unload.
That's what I was curious about. I'm more interested in the impacts of traffic on Bridge Street, which is already an issue we hear a lot about. But overall, I think the idea of optimizing the operations, you know, making the investment in the aerator and stuff that would allow us to continue to take that as a way of buying down this cost. I mean, it's difficult to go to the constituents with 15% annual inflation for the next 5 years. You know, that's a significant jump for people on fixed income or.
So we do have some congressional money that was earmarked just for our dewatering. As part of the septic receiving upgrade.
Yeah.
Right, which is great. I mean,
Right.
and you know, I mean, to the extent that we have this surplus capacity, we don't have the industrial tax base. It's like you and I talked about earlier. You know, this is our industrial tax base in a way when it comes to wastewater treatment. I would really like to optimize that as much as possible, just to you know, because eventually we're going to talk about rate increases. And, you know, I'd hate to think of telling people, you know, it's going to go up $200, $300.
So one of the discussions were you should never charge your septic costs that you charge should never be less than what you charge your ratepayers. And we did a quick analysis. We're basically $85 $1,000
That's 8.5
for
cents.
septic.
We were higher for septic than we were.
We
for
were,
sewer.
yeah,
I
way
don't have the
higher.
numbers In front of me, but we could crunch that basically.
Oh, so we're
Yeah.
charging more for septic.
Oh, yeah,
Than connected sewer users,
right.
but we're not necessarily charging more than the going rate out on Chittenden County.
So the average rate throughout the whole state is 8.9 cents. We charge 8.5.
Okay,
We are not the lowest. We are on the low end though. And there is a fine line between making a break-in point for the septic haulers because of the distance, added distance to us.
that's where the sensitivity to diesel fuel costs comes in a little bit.
Mm.
We don't necessarily need to kill it. We just need to, sell as much of our surplus capacity as we can. And I just know all the other communities in Chittenden County are looking for ways to increase their housing stock, more connected users. Places like Essex Junction, Williston, South Burlington even are going to make much greater strides in terms of increasing their connected users than Richmond is. I mean,
Yeah.
we have plans, we'd like to see some growth in certain parts of the town, but I sincerely doubt it's going to happen and, as quickly as it will for the rest of the county. It's just kind of how it is here, and so.
Well, I think it's just been a challenge that we've talked about, the rate, there's a certain elasticity, right, of what you can charge. We've known that. And like Steve says, it's how we calculate that fine line between somebody going.
But I also think we should start to think about increasing septic. It's a number. We don't have to increase it by, it could be a percentage, and the cost of living percentage every year, we should include that in our increase in rate for septic receiving. We essentially do that for the ratepayers, but we should think about doing that for Montpelier increases their rate every year that way.
Yeah.
They, so it may be a 3% this year or 2.8% next year, but they increase it every year. They don't hold it stagnant. And here we have kind of held it stagnant at a lower rate.
It's just like renting apartments. So, if you forestall the inevitable increase, then people go through rate shock. If you just
Correct.
say we're going to do 1.5% a year
Mhm.
every year.
Yeah.
People
And I think we
we
should-
going to change their operations over a 1% increase, but they
But-
might if you faced them with a 10% increase 10 years down the road.
And you can plan for that. And as someone who had their septic pumped post flood 3 years in a row, or 3 times in a row within 2 years, each time we did it, it went up for the same 500-gallon tank. So like
But the
pumping
rate
companies-
we charge for them to dump.
Didn't
It
change.
went up 1 year, but it's been stagnant for 2 now, I think.
It's been yeah, I think it was stagnant that whole time.
Sure.
Cause we raised it right when I first started on the
Okay,
commission and
so,
we haven't
yeah.
done it since. But so like, to your point, if they're going up a little with their cost anyway, and if they knew that every year we're gonna go up 1.5%, like they can put that into their budgets, like versus a rate shock.
Agreed. I was still sort of stuck on the making it easier process improvement. And I'm sort of stuck on what's the business model or pro forma. Like, I can't picture how spending $2 million to put a receiving station is going to pay for itself, given what we've already talked about with rates. And then the volume, like, it seems to me we'd have to take a lot more volume
Right.
to ever hope to pay, just to pay off the extension of the line, much less everything else.
Chasing your tail.
Well, right, yeah, it's like sort of swirling the drain a bit.
It'd have to be the state would have to be willing to foot the bill if
Yeah.
that's what they want.
And I can, the state was upfront, there's no money for septage receiving out there. None.
And back to the playground, aren't they talking about moving that up by the band shell anyway?
Yeah, but still, you don't want a bunch of trucks pulling in there and unloading with, the kids in the parking lot. I would foresee a nightmare there.
Could get.
For the people who don't spend time with poop.
I mean, don't run in front of the big truck.
Yeah. Just.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you have 6 of those trucks.
So,
backed up,
right,
smell
in
coming
the,
off
in
it.
the summertime,
All them idling and
right,
some guy swearing about he can't get the connection right and the kid.
Not that far. When they're backed up 6 people, that
It's gonna be out.
parking lot, what?
It would be out on the Bridge Street and think about it.
No, 6 trucks would be like from the water sewer plant to like the curve on the end of us.
Oh, you're talking about letting them come down the Park Road. not-
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about a receiving facility.
No. I was talking about
That's
them
where I was
driving on the
thinking.
park
It might be
if it
worth
needed to happen.
looking at that. I think, like Steve was saying, since it's a dirt road and it's not plowed in the winter, it might be challenging to keep that open for
yeah.
septic trucks. It might get more wear and tear. We should ask
The-
Pete,
the-
see what he thinks too.
The road would
Yeah,
have
it
to
does flood. I
definitely
didn't
be.
really think about that it
Yeah.
floods and that would
But
be,
I
Trucks
mean,
or weight go down this.
you mean the road floods?
Huh?
it floods up to
We
that
could-
road,
I'm
right?
sure.
Yeah.
I mean.
It varies, I
In
mean,
the summer you can come down, but in the winter.
right now, we're probably averaging 5 a day.
5 trucks a day. That's how many
But,
gallons?
we're right around, 20,000 a day.
So 5 trucks.
But, right now, the trucks are carrying lighter loads because of the posted roads.
Right.
So they don't overfill, in the summer months when we have 7 trucks, they're gonna have 4,000 to 5,000 gallons on. And, it's a much bigger number. But
5, okay.
So I guess maybe it's trying to bring it back to what do we want to do for funding options? Right,
yeah, I kind of got
that's
segued.
all right. I think it's a good conversation,
Well,
but
I had the spreadsheet up.
yeah, I've
Can
got.
we say what ones we don't want? Which scenarios we know we don't?
Yeah, you have the Hoyle Tanner
Do you
spreadsheet.
have up?
The Hoyle Tanner one that has like the scenario A,
Yeah,
B, C.
pull that up too.
What's the file name?
Oh,
I'll put it
man.
on the screen. I've got it up as well.
3B.
3B01, rate increases for repayment alternatives.
Here we go. I got you.
Because I'm confused with 3B2, which is commercial.
I think that's the one that Izzy made that just shows how it would affect the commercial versus, I just pulled it up so we could talk about like scenario A is a 20-year loan.
Okay,
Scenario
right.
B is a 30-year loan,
Which we've already
which
decided.
so like, dear Hoyle Tanner, we'd like to focus on A,
Yeah, so far I've got
E1.
20-year loan is what we want. I guess since we were just talking about septage, I was gonna ask, if you look at the base for septage, they're assuming 20,000 gallons of septage.
Right.
Their projection in their projected model was 35,714. And we could pick anywhere in between that. My concern with their top end is, will we really drive that much septage to the facility? We don't have the marketing campaign we're gonna roll out with this to increase sales. But maybe we pick something in between there. And I'm not sure how they calculate the rate for septage and if they could put in a multiplier of 1.5 to 2% every year as a projection. And if we said, okay, let's go with 27,000 gallons a year at a 1.5% increase in rate, maybe that's realistic.
Right. One septage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just looking at that portion of the payback.
All right.
It
Yeah.
seems to me we run a risk if we overestimate revenues for
Mhm.
the septage that never shows up. And we gotta go back to the ratepayers and say, oh yeah, we were wrong.
I agree.
Charge more.
Yeah, I think what we charge, we can depend upon, but you're right. That's the,
So
shower.
I
volume.
have put feelers out to the haulers. And all of them are encouraged if we went to 24/7 receiving.
And we have to install,
Well, that's, we have to install the reader and the whole new receiving unit.
But that comes as part of the upgrade package,
But that is
right?
part of the upgrade and stuff.
do we know what that costs?
It's it's all wrapped into that upgrade. It's the new septic receiving area and the new receiving bay with the credit card reader and metered flow. So basically, they would not be on an honor system anymore. They would be on, each driver will have their own card. It's swiped to a billing system. And the number of gallons that goes through the meter would, tally onto their card.
Yeah,
And then you would bill to the company that's associated with the card. Montpelier has the same system.
I was just curious if we'd have enough money in our capital accounts to pay for that as soon as
I'm not-
possible.
Well, part of that is the
New bid.
capital is the congressional spending money.
Yeah, and I think it's all sort of tied together. I
Right.
remember we thought about that a while ago, and Kirsten was basically like, you gotta wait.
Okay.
Just a comment in deference to the residents in the neighborhood. I'm not sure we should be thinking 24/7. I'm just thinking, does somebody want to be woken up with their windows open in summer by a truck going down at 3 a.m? Just a comment. I think we're gonna have to wrestle with that sooner or later. Because people.
I have not ever had any of the people on Esplanade complain about truck traffic. I know there was a time when they did.
Yeah, maybe I'm just remembering that.
But how late do they go now? Like 9,
No,
5?
if I stay to 5, I let them come till 5.
Okay,
Um,
because 5 is gonna be a lot different than 11 PM.
right, but that's the interest that people are, so currently. The only other alternative for a 24/7 in our area is Shelburne. And currently Shelburne is not accepting septic at all.
So that's theoretical.
So, and is 24-hour means that, like, if there was an emergency, they might drop
Yeah,
it off?
it-
Or does
that's-
that mean that, like, it's gonna happen 6 out of 7 days, 5 times?
You
a
don't
day?
know, but what they are looking for is the extended hours. And that, one of the things that I have done to increase the septage in the summer months is I stay till 5. And I usually Memorial Day weekend, I tell them, from now on for the rest of the summer, I'm here till 5. Assume you can bring it. And a lot of them, they like that because there's no other, everybody else closes at 3. And they like the ability to, so maybe we don't go to 24/7, but maybe we extend the hours, but don't have to have somebody sitting here
Right.
Right,
to do that.
So like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
right. Is there, like, are we able to say you can't come after 8 p.m., like, only an emergency?
We can set whatever hours we want. But
Well-
the ability to take it without somebody being there is what we don't have right now.
My observation, as one of the few people here who actually lives in a village where there are trucks, trash trucks, when they arrive.
Yeah, ours
It's
too.
7 a.m.
Right.
They do not arrive at 6:45. They arrive there, and I think it's because of the quiet hours in the village.
Yeah.
Which is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., something like that.
Oh, they come to,
There's a noise ordinance.
they come to the farm at 6.
It's actual quiet hours.
And, well, it's a noise ordinance
Yeah.
about how loud you are, and they go down one way and they can't turn around, so then they go one way or the other with the rear reverse beeping sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the septic trucks in the summer months, they do come at 6:30.
In the morning.
Yeah, I'll have 4 P&P trucks there at 6:30 waiting to dump.
Mhm.
And that's because they've had emergency calls overnight and they fill the trucks up and bring them and dump them.
But they're already going down Esplanade at 6, waiting for
Yeah.
you.
I mean,
They're already
Well, a
here.
lot of people are still in bed, but an hour later and you get into the PM, AM, PM peak.
Yeah.
they know the haulers know the peak travel problems in Richmond
Yeah.
and they avoid us.
So
You know.
that's my primary concern. would be
Yeah.
As long as they're not trying to beat their way back up Bridge Street at 4 in the afternoon. Because then we have to really start looking at,
Well, it's that 7:45 time.
It's
They
7:30
try not to
to
be
8
coming
a.m.
down the street.
That's the worst time on Bridge
Right.
Street, that morning half.
Yeah.
And because they don't want to be stuck in traffic, they're making money by getting out and going. So they come earlier, avoid the traffic, get out of town, and then they come back, at like 9:30, 10, in the summer months.
but just to bring this back to the budget discussion a little bit. You say you're currently processing like 27,000 gallons?
No,
Oh,
20 is what we average. Yeah.
okay. And so 35 is a bit of a reach, but if
No, I think 35 is a reach. 30, I think, is very doable.
so that's what I was going back to. If we look at trying to get 30,000 gallons per day, and we look at just a slight tweak in the rate every year so that we can run it out across the fiscal years. I mean, already by the way this is set up, we've gotten from where there was initial years were like 15% a year. Now that the only double digit is in the first year.
That's also with if you're increasing users too.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to prevent having to increase user rates by
Correct.
as much.
I mean, you can tweak this model to do whatever we would like it to do.
Yeah, so if the septic rate increase went up to 1.5% a year, that would at least it could make you equal to the sewer rate increase.
Why would we do 2.5%?
Well, I don't know. It's just like we're saying, if we do it on a steadily increase it every year, just always go up 1.5% a year over those 10 years. At some point, the top line, the user rates themselves flatten out a little bit. But to use the 30,000 gallons per day for septic receiving and to tweak the septic rate increase by a modest amount, and then just rerun the numbers and see how that impacts.
Yeah,
But
well, and actually looking at, sorry, I just noticed that they actually do have a septic rate increase already factored into
Yeah.
the 3.5%. So maybe we stick with that. That's more than we were thinking, but that's about where inflation's been.
Yeah,
And I don't see it coming down anytime soon. So if we went with 30,000, kept the septic rate increases as they have modeled here,
yeah.
maybe that gives us a little bit more zeroing in on that actual number.
things, but it gets back to, we have to have a system in place or agree upon that the trucks can start coming in at 5:30 a.m. but then they're cut off at 5 p.m. I mean, that's what's going to get more volume. It's not
Yeah, but an increase of 10,000 gallons a day is 2 or 3
trucks.
trucks. Yeah.
right, but I mean, they could do that now, but they don't.
Oh, yeah, they do. Well, hold on. We have had days where we have taken 100,000 gallons
Right, I realize that.
in the 8-hour period.
Right.
Do you have the resources to market this? I mean, how do you get the word out to haulers and stuff? Is it all in
So-
solar?
It used to, and so when I took over, it used to be that the receiving was so fluid at Richmond that you would spend all day taking calls from haulers. Hey, you got room for this, you got room for that, you got room. So finally, in keeping everything running and being able to stay open, I went to texting once a day. I would take 35,000 gallons. First come, first serve. I would text all the haulers that. And we did that for about a year, and the number of calls and shit that we were having to handle went down. You could essentially have put one person just on the phone all day talking to haulers, looking for space to bring you stuff. Went to the 35,000 every day, did that for about a year. And then I just told them, look, just assume we're open. Unless I text you, we're closed. And that's eliminated pretty much all the phone calls. There is a state system in place that was put in place after COVID
Mhm.
because they had a whole bunch of these problems where we notify. So in February, when we were going to be down for 2 weeks, in January, I notified the state and it went out to all the haulers.
Okay.
Problem is, all the haulers, that goes to their office, doesn't go to their truck drivers because it's an email. And I brought this up that, you know, it's the truck drivers that are looking to get stuff unloaded. It's not the office girl who's sending the trucks out to get, you know, where to dump. So our system is pretty much now, most of the haulers are like, this is great. We just show up. We don't have to worry about it. We know you got space. And I religiously, even if I don't have space, if you're one of the small haulers and you show up with 2,000 gallons, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to turn them away. In the past, they would be turned away. Can always find room for 2,000 gallons or, you know, whatever. The big haulers, they have gotten into the habit of, we have 4 10,000 gallon tanks. We want to pump them out on this day. Can we reserve space? And I'm like, okay, if you're guaranteeing me all that flow, I'll make sure we'll be able to take yours. If I have to shut somebody else off, I will shut them off. But so they know how I operate better. We've been more consistent about being open. And they know if I'm closed, it's because something's broke and they can't get it fixed right that day. Or somebody brought me a load and it screwed up my plant and I'm down because I can't take any septage. That's the other thing that I want us to look at in septage receiving. Montpelier has an ordinance. It is not a contract with their haulers, but if they have charged up to $40,000 to a hauler for bringing them a bad load. It's not the first fine is like 10. The next fine is, and then the third one is whatever it costs to fix the plant that you messed up. And they have charged it.
So it comes in all full of gravel or chemicals.
Chemicals
Yeah.
that
Critter
screw
kills.
up the plant. And they have it written, it's in their ordinance, you got first offense, second offense, third offense. And you're on the hook for whatever problem you caused. I think we need to put that in place, not because we need the money, but I think that will, for the most part, eliminate that one problem that I had where it killed our plant.
Well, it's like a hot load of milk. It makes perfect sense. Like,
Yeah.
there's antibiotics in your milk, you get charged.
Is there any way with this new kind of card reading based system to sort of set off an alarm if that starts coming in or?
Well, it's a timestamp.
Well,
What?
I was more worried about something that says, hey, you're getting a hot load here.
So it's really hard. There are systems that take samples and you can set parameters and it will shut off the hauler if the load doesn't meet the parameter that you put in, mostly on pH. And there's some other, but those systems are so expensive. It's out of our price range. I mean, I really feel they're out of our price range. When I looked at them, they were like 3 times the money for what we're looking to put in. But you do, like Dave said, you do have a timestamp. You can trace it back to, you came in with this load at this time. And that's pretty much what we did with the load that came in and killed our plant. We knew exactly what time it was. We knew exactly what hauler it was. And, you know, we went to them and like, what'd you bring me? And they're like, well, it was a catch basin at a medical receiving, you know, it was like a medical receiving yard where they received medical waste. And it was a catch basin they cleaned out and they brought that to us. So you can't say what chemicals were in it. They couldn't. They should have taken it to a bigger plant like Montpelier or you know, even Burlington, but they came in and it killed our plant for almost 2 weeks.
I think those of us on the select board would be happy to explore a change to the ordinance to
Yeah.
cover something like that. We might need some guidance from.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
That'll-
Montpelier has a model out there and we can look at that.
Yeah.
I think
If they know we're watching, I think they'll go someplace else naturally. I mean, especially if
they've gotten a lot better. When I first started, they would try to bring anything they could to us. Grease, you know, they'd go pump a grease trap, pump 3 septic tanks and bring us the load. I've shut them off. You bring me a greasy load, I'm shutting that driver off. And they know that now. So they've been a lot better and they're trying to be respectful. For the most part, they are.
So I guess we get back to how do you market to get so that we know we're gonna have 27,000 gallons or 30,000 gallons and that's
Right.
been
do
the
we need a special budget or
I think,
a part-time
yeah.
person or.
things we've put out there, talked about is if you bring us all of yours, instead of charging you 8.5 cents, we'll like do 8 cents. And I think the money, we just have to decide the money still works, but that guarantee to getting an extra 7,000 gallons a day.
Right, trying to get contracts with haulers.
Yeah.
More so that we guarantee we're gonna get X amount of gallons from you. And if you're gonna, so, you know, if we're charging 8.5 cents, maybe we charge them 8.25. If you guarantee to bring me 30,000 a day or whatever we pick, you know.
Bring us 10 loads and we'll punch your card every time.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
That is the marketing I think might work for us. You know, we already have one hauler that prepays every year.
That's very good.
So we know we're gonna get X amount of gallons from them.
It's not a lot of money, but it's $75, 30,000 gallons they could save.
Yeah,
But if you did that every day, right?
right. I mean, and they will look for that, I think.
So
So-
370.
So yeah, 20 and
Look
using,
at, well, we look at, I think we talked about 30,000 a day, keep the escalator, the rate increase as they presented. Cause that's a little more than we were talking about. They're at 3.5
Yeah.
a year. And that gives us maybe some, based on this conversation, a volume and a rate increase that we're comfortable with and think is realistic.
Yeah, because I'm just looking where, you know, when you drop back down to current expected receiving volume, that top line goes back up to 15% for, you know.
Yeah, well, this is, so,
but there's other
Rate
things.
analysis,
put in.
this one.
this one, I think, we should, we expand. The,
Cause rate A and rate E1 apparently are the only two that are 20 years.
yeah, so, well, yeah, I mean, I think, so that's the thing, we're not gonna get perfect changes on these models tonight.
Oh, yeah, but if we're looking at one that's a,
But I
Yeah,
think I think
So-
Aaron's thought of trying to decide what we might not want for funding
yeah,
is a place to start.
so I think this was B and C, so it was base, increased septage and base septage. So if we looked at B,
B and C are both 30-year loans.
And that's the other.
but I think, I mean, that's my my point is like, I think I'm looking at these in like little pieces, right? Like, I'm just looking
Yeah.
at the septic receiving. The 20, 30 year, like, I think once we get these assumptions dialed in, we'll feed that to Hoyle Tanner, and then they'll come back with my goal is they're gonna come back with a model that's 20 years, 30,000 septage, this rate increase, and then they'll do that number for us.
And then we'll have maybe two things to compare.
I would hope, yeah.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
I think the next thing we gotta look at is growth. And looking at this one, this is sort of a base growth, right, where you're adding 2 or so houses for 2 customers per year. The other model they came up with was, I think it's this one where you're adding a little bit, well, a lot more in FY 28, they're going to 28. Then so every 3 or 4 years, they're bumping it by double digits.
Is
So
there anything that would suggest that's plausible in the village?
the only thing that I would think that could push it that way is the new zoning laws that are passed by the state. You can do a lot more with your land right now, but you've said in the past, show me, because
Well,
we'll see what happens.
we do have buttermilk.
Buttermilk's gonna increase.
be
at
a
some
big-
point. I know there's some,
You
I
know.
think Gary's got some plans for some more houses on the other side of the bridge, but these all take time.
Yeah.
And willing participants for property owners too, right? Because if you've got your single family house and you're looking to be in there for the next 20 years, well, you're not gonna put a duplex on there.
Why don't we just pick a number? What,
I liked the other one that had the slower growth,
Slower growth.
simply because I think that is a
More accurate.
more conservative, like
Hmm.
planning for 25 units and basing our budget off of that for 20 units every 3 or 4 years is a pretty big assumption in my.
And even if we start with the baseline growth and in 3 years, we say, wow, it's really increasing.
That's great.
Rates are gonna go down.
Right.
to get more customers.
Yeah.
So I like your conservative approach.
I'd rather under promise
Yeah.
and over deliver.
Mhm.
Yeah,
okay,
Then the other question is, they gave us taxpayer sharing options, which
that's a marketing.
Oh, I think it's more than just marketing. I think it's a fundamentally a political question.
I
So
would like to see them.
Well,
I'd like
You'd
to
like to
see
see the
them, what the
balance.
taxpayer, like what their like how that looks
well, they did.
with the property. They're in 2 of them right now, but if those are both 30-year, if they have a 20-year proposal with,
it's the,
So as an option, 20-year proposal with taxpayer,
well, I guess if they don't need to like invent one, but if they already have it
I'm sure they can.
going, I think it's
get
worth
the numbers.
looking at because
you know, I think about this as just being on the system user in that 50 years ago, whenever they built the plant, it was really built for the cheese, right? I mean,
well, it's built for
the
the
size.
industry.
right, but it was the size and the
Yeah.
way it was built was because we have a cheese factory. Now that's gone. And the users are now encumbered with this system that's, I mean, expensive in some ways
Yeah.
because of,
we'd have to have a system anyway.
You're still gonna have to
Yeah.
have a system
But-
and the push is to go away from lagoons. Like Heinsberg had a cheese factory bigger than the one here,
right?
but they had a lagoon system. Now they're gone away and they've got a more advanced plant than we have because they just built it.
Right.
But they're basically small batch reactor plant.
Right.
But our plant was, I feel, was a better design than what they did in Heinsberg originally with the lagoons and the cheese factory that was there. I mean, the cheese factory in Heinsberg lasted longer than this one.
Mhm.
And Heinsberg had terrible problems. It's only now that they're able to open up the town for development because
Cheese
of the new sewer plant that's come online.
I guess also my pitch would be in order to have, you know, restaurants and the things that we like to be a town that serves everybody, those things is it seems like there's an argument to say this is part of the sharing and everybody's, 20%, that means still all of the taxpayers are paying that 20%, right?
So I'll just say when we went around this barn the last time around the water tank and extensions, there was a great deal of anxiety at that time anyway, from people who are not part of the system saying, I'm not going to have to pay for this, am I? So that was a faction of some size, and it certainly was vocal at the time. That said, there are examples, I think it's Eamsburg or Johnson, where the entire town subsidizes the
There's
system.
several towns out there that
Like-
do.
So it happens, and their logic is because residents of that town were convinced that having that system support the businesses, the restaurants, the
Grocery store.
thriving village
Medical.
mattered.
Well, we talked about the model in Montpelier, I believe it is, where everybody pays for the sewer plant.
Well, not everybody. In Montpelier, they expanded their district, essentially. There are 250 users that are not connected to the sewer system that pay sewer rates.
But they get,
But their septic tank is pumped every 3 years at no cost.
that sweetens the pill, because I'm looking at the budget, it's just shy of $500 per $100,000 worth of value. Number one, good luck finding a place for $100,000 in Richmond.
Yeah.
But if we look at a more typical house price of what, 500,000 now, that's $2,500 a year for a service you're not taking advantage of. On the other hand, I don't know, could we contract with a honey dipper to because we have capacity at the plant.
What's a honey dipper?
Oh, the people who come and such the septic tank.
Or truck.
Yeah, sorry. I thought everybody did. Yeah.
So Montpelier contracts with one hauler, and essentially that hauler knows they have in a 3-year period, they have 250 guaranteed. And they pay so they don't pay to dump. And they charge, I think he said at the meeting, I believe he said it was under $200 a tank. What Montpelier pays the contracted hauler on those 250 additional users that are not connected. So I don't know if anybody's had a septic tank pump lately.
Oh,
It was 600 last time we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is an advantage to the haulers because they're essentially guaranteed and know that these,
Well, we're not gonna have people using systems to the point of failure, but
and that's,
my greater concern is just going to the taxpayers, have already seen a 12% increase in the
Right.
school budget, a 5% increase in the town budget. Now we're gonna hit them with, I know you're not plugged into the system, but we're gonna charge you for it. That's a hard sell, I think.
I think the first thing those homeowners are gonna do is say, okay, I did it every 3 years on my own dime at $600.
Right.
Now it's gonna be free, but it's gonna cost me $1,800.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a great,
No, it's gonna cost them
Business model.
2,500 a
Yeah,
year,
or like-
times 3 years.
and there's no way, in my opinion, that's ever gonna fly.
yeah.
$2,500 for a $500,000 house. I mean,
Per year.
I
Yes.
just,
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking how many residential units do we have in Richmond? Like 1,500? I think there's over 4,000 people that live.
I don't know. I only deal with the district.
So if there's 1,500 residential units and you come up with a tax rate that says the average is $100, how much is that a year we get? I mean, that's how I look
There
at
were
it. That-
1,500 and everyone paid $100, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like,
That would be $150,000.
so if instead of 20, so that's $150,000.
I think it's
That's a pretty good chunk of
1.8
change.
million.
Wait,
Paying down. No, that's right. That's a pretty good chunk of
But
change.
isn't it the
15.
percentage on the grand list though?
Well, it would be. I mean, that's sort of how you'd have
Yeah.
to.
So
approach it.
150.
But you could, I guess you could go a lower percentage of the
Right.
grand list. It wouldn't have to be the percentage that they gave us.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. You can't, you can't make an insult to me. It's coming up with a rate, but that's a lot of money, 150,000 of capital to go towards paying on that loan.
Hmm.
And that's an easier sell than, that's, I guess that's how I was thinking about it. Let's don't make it so onerous that they're gonna be mad, but.
Or it'll never fly.
Right.
Just-
Right. Well, and there's a happy, like, I always struggle with the school budget and it pisses me off that I homeschool my kids and we pay for the school and we'll pay for the school until I die.
Right.
Like, I feel like there's a little bit of an argument that everyone, like the things that are on the water and sewer are accessible to all, not just students, you
Right.
know, there's the grocery store, the
Hardware store, the
you know, and there's, so that might be a little bit of a different pitch if it was an affordable amount on your
right,
So
taxes,
to
like,
that end, if we said,
and ours isn't gonna go up 28% every year.
right.
I mean, if we looked at setting a tax rate of $20 per $100,000, that would get you to $100 per $500,000 home, which is about what you're talking about.
That's about the average, okay.
I think it's,
Yeah.
I mean, there's some, yeah, it's about the average, I'd say. So that would, that would get us something probably in that ballpark of $150,000.
I know, is that a pretty good amount of money to go towards this bond payment or?
What's our total? Our total payment is.
Well, we don't know.
To get a little lost in the back end numbers here, but it's, so I think as an option, like I like what Aaron said at the beginning. Yeah, let's get our preferred choices and then run one with and one without the taxpayer. And maybe we say run one with the taxpayer at $20 per 100K. And see what it does,
Okay,
right? And
Yeah.
then he'll probably set it up where you can take that 20 to
Right.
10 or up to 25, 30. So I think that could be a good way to come back to the commission.
And we might look at it and be like,
Can we go back
Yeah,
to,
totally.
can we go back to that septage page you had up?
Yeah.
Where we were looking at,
We're going back to septage. I still got
well, no, this
two
isn't,
more questions after.
no, this isn't to do with septage, but I wanna look at something that's on there.
No, fair enough. Let me get back to you that. Which page were you looking at? Septage page,
Is that the
Where-
B one?
where it was talking about how many gallons. per
Okay.
day.
So future capital expenses. Replacement expense of $50,000 a year. Is that what I'm reading there?
Yeah,
we're gonna put in a new plant and need $50,000 worth of repairs
Well,
every.
well, that's
Here is
what
where
I'm,
you're getting
that's
to.
my question here.
I
I'm
think
I'm
that's a
looking at
reasonable
this.
question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
If it were a car, you'd say,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
We wouldn't buy that one.
That in every model.
Seems more than consumables.
Yeah,
and they've got a
It's a really good
$15,000 sinking fund for the next 20-year plan, apparently,
Yeah.
Right,
which.
future equipment.
so I'm confused there by that,
Okay, I'll ask that question too.
you know?
Well, you.
50,000 a year is a lot of money on a plant that I'm hoping I don't have to fix a lot of things
Mhm.
after an upgrade.
But you're gonna always have that background level of stuff breaking, right? I mean, it's a big machine.
But the philosophy is we're going to do the maintenance. We're gonna, follow the manufacturer's recommendation.
Yeah.
Take them out, get them rebuilt when they need to be, and put them back into use under a warranty again.
Yeah,
And that's the same whether it's the influent pumps or it's the filters. Like, when I talk to people about some of this stuff, they're like, you're still using that? We don't support that, haven't for like 10 years. Why weren't they upgraded? Then we wouldn't be in this position that we're in.
well, we have,
I can tell you the philosophy was, if it ain't broke, we ain't fixing it. And it's always worked this way. Why can't we just Band-Aid it together to keep it running?
Well, let's ask them, let's clear that up,
But-
Josh,
Yeah.
if you'll just ask them.
Then I guess, next question is, do we want to consider the local option tax?
Yes.
And At what,
This is the sales tax.
Yeah.
And that's, I think it'd be interesting to see what the local options tax compared to adding $20 per
Right.
100,000 in
I
value
think-
would do
Yeah.
to our revenue.
That tax is getting everybody coming in,
Right.
not just the town people. You're taxing the person that's stopping at Stone Corral for lunch, and you're taxing the, you know, the guy that stops and gets gas and, you know, a sandwich at the mobile or.
Yeah,
I'll just say there's competition though, too.
Yeah.
Like people have talked about, let's use a local options tax to fund some improvements to this building. So what do the taxpayers want to do?
Here's a question for you. What if you can't get sewer and water in this building? What's your option?
I don't know that people look at it that way necessarily.
No, but
It's logic.
if we, our plants not, we can't supply with, I mean, the water, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be able to, but it could come to a point where we couldn't supply sewer.
I think with that local, that we need to drill down to, they came up with a number like 300,000, I think. Josh, is it?
yeah, and I've been trying to, so
We have to,
that number I got based on the sales reports from the state.
right,
Aaron brought up a good question about like, what about sales from Milton Cat or Jay Hutchins, or even I was thinking the ham factory that are going out of state. So those aren't gonna get taxed. I tried to find out like how much that is. So the base numbers that the state provides is all sales from all Richmond businesses. So they don't differentiate between where it's sold at that level. Once you started doing the tax, they would certainly differentiate. So I asked them, is there a way to back that out? The only really way to do that is to go to each individual business and ask, how many do you do in town versus out of town? They also said though that what we hadn't factored in yet was online sales. So if you buy something on Amazon and it comes here, you're paying the 1% tax. So they said that, you know, that it might end up being a bit of a wash because the way they estimate it for us, it'd be like another 25 million, I think, in sales. So it could sort of balance out. So I think right now for this model, we're basing it at 332,000 total revenue. And we're only putting 50% of that back into this project. So even if we are wrong by half, and then we just put 100% of it in at $150,000. So I think that estimate 332 at 50% is probably conservative enough for this. And it either eats all of it, or there's some extra that could go towards other projects.
new town center,
So
or refurbished, I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, that passed, didn't it? Didn't the ballot initiative to set aside money for the town center, 1% of,
Right,
yeah, so I think that's in process. I don't think that's competing for funds here.
no,
Well,
but
we
that's
talked about Housing committee.
Right, so-
Plan.
Has anybody talked to anybody like the grocery store, the hardware store, DMP, you know, about,
it'd be the next step.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to blindside our local businesses if they feel like, hey, if you do this, we're gonna go out of business. That doesn't help anybody.
Right.
That might be hyperbole, but you know,
Well, I think we can look at which towns surround us or has a local option tax.
I mean, Williston does.
Right.
yeah, I don't think Williston's a fair comparable though, because
No.
they have a ton of commercial
Right.
development.
Right. But I mean, my point being, you know, if the businesses aren't paying that tax, the consumer is, like Steve was pointing out, so everybody's paying it. The question is, by going up 1% or whatever, is it gonna make people angry enough? They're like, hell no, I'm driving into Williston to get my.
Pay the tax there. The, I guess,
I paid their tax.
but I also wrestle with the thought of if we decide to go with the option of applying a flat fee to every taxpayer, that still leaves the local option tax up in the air for another organization to claim. So at what point are we charging now $20 per assessed value 100,000 and we're charging the local option tax for something else at 1%, it might not be us, the water and sewer department, that are hitting people a second time, but where is the responsibility that we have to say, like, maybe it makes sense to do the local option tax for this infrastructure project versus leaving the local options tax on the table
And I mean,
and be charging them.
you could also do it for set number of years.
Local options tax?
Yeah, can't you sunset it for a certain number of years?
To sunset.
I don't know. You might
Oh.
be able to, but I mean, I think it has to be passed by the voters,
Right.
but maybe there's a sunset. I don't know.
I think you can make it project specific, and so when you've paid that project off, right? It's
It would revert.
Okay.
So Aaron, I'm hearing that it's one or the other.
No, I just was thinking, like, if we don't apply the local options tax to this, it still is.
Somebody else is
Somebody
gonna-
else could, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing,
Right.
but you don't know. I feel like we should put in front of the voters, I guess, both options, but if we choose the option that assigns a charge based on your home site value, it still leaves the local option out there, and now people could be getting two more bills to add on to their ever increasing taxes for school and this and that and the other, like, it's just, I don't know. Not saying we need to like claim the local option tax, but kind of like if we claim it for infrastructure, it's going towards the water and sewer versus it could get claimed for any that might not serve the whole community.
I think people understand water and sewer as one of those things that municipalities do, you know, I can imagine, you know, some large conservation project or something that might not be universally popular.
Right.
But I don't see a lot of movement from those people to do that. I just think however we look at it, we ought to just keep in mind that sort of total impact on tax / ratepayers.
Right.
So, I mean, I think there is some consensus on the 20-year amortization.
Yep.
The $30,000 septage receiving volume. I think that I would agree with Steve that the sinking fund or future equipment expense thing is probably just a guess. You know, if I was filling out this form, I would just.
Yeah, I
But
mean.
you could make that $25,000 or $20,000 a year, bearing in mind that we have restricted, unrestricted funds.
Right.
Right.
You know, we've got $250,000 in the bank for if another $30,000 pump. blows
And
out.
yeah, and that,
30,000 gallons a day, not $30,000, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
30,000 gallons a day, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I might even add to that list. I really question a $2 million engineering design fee for a $10 million project. That's a 20% fee, which
We
is
talking about that.
stiff. You know, I mean, if you read the EPA white paper on the cost of wastewater treatment plants, you know, they suggest the total of design fees are probably more like 8 to 10%, and about 30% of that 8 to 10% goes to the engineer. I think that's overstated. I would challenge the basis of that because I don't think I've ever seen anybody pay 20% design fees. Although I've never been big in wastewater treatment plants either. It just seems like a very large number. So maybe we can trim some of those down budget items as we have them recalculate this.
I mean, we really haven't looked at the engineering fees because it's been forgiven.
Well, some of it's been forgiven, but a lot of it was also, I think, done on a cost curve and what's eligible for the amount of the project. So there's a lot rather large spreadsheets that they produce in conjunction with the state as far as like where their maximum has to be or could be.
All right,
So
well,
they do.
it stands out at me when I
I
see
hear you.
it.
I think it's a good question. Next time we have Will Tanner here, they can answer that a lot better than I can as far as how they calculate that, but there are some state standards that they can work with. So what I'm seeing is like sort of where we're getting to 20-year loan, 30K in septage, conservative growth, local option tax. Look at that fee for future replacement expense. Do we want to look at, there was the loan suppression option as well, where I think I'm not going to do a really good job of explaining, but I think it holds down some of your payments early on and pushes them towards the end. We want to include that in our
That's
base.
that option E1.
Okay,
I think we want that, right? Because it keeps us from dipping below,
Yeah.
into our capital, right? I think that was the reason for that.
well, I think it was
It's like a buy down, right?
something, yeah.
Yeah, I think because, whatever expenses or whatever the coverage is, we didn't have to ramp up the, like that 15 or 20%. It allowed us to slow that up a little bit. We were dropping down, but then we hit that point where, and then we were able to go to the 2.5% or whatever. This is a growth almost of 12% across.
I mean, the other thing is, you know, we get the upgrade in there. The refurbishment, the whatever you want to call it. You know, currently biosolids, the dewatering and the wastewater treatment plant, we're looking at close to $50,000 a year between those two that I'm spending on repairs. I'm hoping not to have to spend that,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's a big cut out of the budget right there.
That's a fair point. Is there a down with operations and maintenance? One, I want to go back to the local options tax. I'd like to see, this is going to come up as we discuss this with voters. A model with the local options tax and without the local options tax.
Yeah, so what I had as our base was the 20-year loan, the 30K septage, conservative growth, local option tax, loan suppression, look at the 50K per year. And then, so that's sort of our base option, and start seeing what we're coalescing around. The next option would be take local option tax out, add in the taxpayers idea.
Yeah.
And then the next option would be keep local option tax in and taxpayers in. Do we want a fourth where we don't do anything with local option tax and nothing with taxpayers?
That would be your control condition, basically.
Yeah, so then you have a base plus 2 or 3 different options after that.
I think so.
Okay. I can ask them for that.
And the local options tax would apply to anything that is bought by Richmond
In Richmond.
in Richmond, right?
Um,
Like Hutchins and Cat, anything that's not in Richmond.
Right.
yeah, anything
But
that they deliver outside of
But
Richmond.
what the state's saying is the online stuff
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind of offsets.
but
So,
if,
but
but,
I was
right,
asking the equipment dealer if he had any insight to how much he thought goes out of Richmond.
yeah, I gotta imagine that a large.
I think it's probably 98%.
Not a lot of people buying those, whatever cat.
Yeah.
But they are, when they buy one, they spend a lot of money.
All right, so I think that, I think this has been a really good use of an hour.
Yeah.
Or whatever it's been. So I'll send that feedback to Hill Tanner, and then we'll schedule them to come back when they're ready to walk through some of this in more detail.
Awesome.
Right.
All right, you want to go on to our next item?
Yes, Ms. Pulley's been waiting very patiently.
yes, yeah.
C, discussion of next steps in exploring location for the wastewater pump station.
So when we started to talk about this, I feel like we sort of have started to narrow in on 3 potential options. One is rebuild in place, but obviously that comes with some elevation and screening concerns because you have to make it higher. And there's probably a little bit more expensive to rebuild in place and continue to operate. The second one or another one is the John Cart property, which is down the road, sort of in the back. And the other one is across from Gary Bresser's house by the bridge. In order to explore those other 2 options, I think there's 2 things we could look at. Maybe I'll start with Gary's first, then we'll get into the other one. So if we're gonna move across the street from Gary's, we would want to check for ledge. And they got some drilling estimates between $2,200 and $9,400. So I'd imagine we'd probably be in the $3,000 to $4,000 range to do some test bits to see,
They,
is there ledge?
they need to come in and do some test
Right.
bits.
So But I want to ask the commission, is that money you want to spend to take a look at that location as an option?
We would have to do that at any site or just?
No, well,
This site particular because
to,
there's,
to see if this site is viable, we would have to do it at that site.
Is this the site that we first talked about? That's where it already is, or is this up a
No.
little ways where like that little piece of concrete is
Correct.
with the rebar sticking?
Right.
up?
by the concrete, the concern is, if you look on the other side of the bridge from that spot, it's full ledge. But Gary claims that he's done some digging around over there and there's not that much ledge or any. So we want to see, because that would have to be what, 40, 50 feet deep? It has to be pretty deep.
45 feet.
So these would be some test bits to see, is that viable? Because if there's ledge there, you're not blasting it to the bridge.
Right.
But do you guys want to spend $4,000, give or take, to get some test bits done?
I think it's reasonable amount.
Well,
I think it's our due diligence.
I think we lay out all the options.
Well, yeah, so, okay, so then the
Yeah.
next one is for the John Cart property. The access is a question. Ms. Polly is here. She says that her deed says that she's got access and owns that driveway. Gary Bresser brought up a point. He has found some old documentation, says, no, I think the town might still own that. So I reached out to Chris Haggerty from Button Surveying to ask, could you help us sort of settle this as an objective surveyor? He said it'd probably be about $1,500 to do some research, to look into the deeds. He's already got, I think, some of this done from previous work that he or his previous boss did. But he's like, yeah, it wouldn't take a whole lot to dive into that and see and come back with all the documentation that would hopefully provide a definitive answer. And he's, from working with him in the past, he's very objective. He'll provide tons of good information to the commission about what he found. Yep.
The spot, backing up for a second,
Yep.
the spot across from Gary Bresser's,
Yeah.
do we already own that? Or is it Gary's that we would then have to get it assessed and pay him for it and all
We
of
would
these other
need
things?
an
Yeah.
easement or a purchase from Gary. Yeah, so
Okay.
there would be additional costs to that down the line if it's viable.
Okay.
Yep.
So either way, we're looking at properties that we are going to have to purchase.
No, there is the third option of putting it
in-
where it currently is.
But I think that in order to explore either of these properties,
Right.
these are the next sort of two steps that cost, I mean, not a lot of money, but
This is Gary.
it's outside of sort of the original
Right here.
engineering scope. That's why I wanted to get some
Miss Polly lives in
gauge
this
from the commission.
residence.
Do we want to spend
And
that
I'm
money or
thinking
not?
about putting it like-
You know, my take is to just
Or-
resolve the deed question. Cause it sounds dim that we own that road, but if we own it, it's a tipping point, isn't it?
For that location.
And that's non-intrusive. It's just looking at the deed histories. So it seems to me we'd start with that one because it's non-intrusive, arguably, and it's just what are the facts. And if we don't own it, that shifts the balance.
Question or?
May I interrupt?
Absolutely.
No, I am not for, I'm sorry, having it put on Gary's, on John Cart's
John
property,
covered.
Okay.
okay? I'm all for where the pump station is now, okay? I know it floods, but I don't have proof, although I know that it floods where you are planning on putting it in the back of my wall.
Okay.
Okay? I have lived there since 72 and I've seen it flood a lot because we used to put wood through it. I know someone presented the thing that they claimed that they parked their car in the bottom part of where my driveway is.
I
Okay?
mean, I don't know about that, but
They did that twice, and that was not even in a flood when we were gonna have a flood. But that's beside the point. The thing is, putting it behind where I live, and I spend a lot of time outside where it is now. Okay, I don't, it doesn't affect me,
it's gonna be a much different structure there. though.
right? It's gonna be bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Higher.
Yep.
But there are ways that you can
Buffer it.
hide it,
Mhm.
okay, move it back. I'm just Like, maybe it's selfish, live there and I enjoy my property, but if I'm gonna have, trucks, pardon me, I know I need the water. And we need a pump station, but I'm just not for that, okay? So I'm hoping that you find another place.
I mean,
Okay, I know it's a problem, but I don't know what the criteria is for a pump station. Okay, you don't want it to flood, right?
it, in its current location, the pump station, if we are going to put it there,
Yeah,
it's gonna be roughly about 9 feet high.
Yeah.
With some type of a staircase on the outside.
okay,
I will say the original renderings that the Hoyle Tanner brought to us were very concrete and very utilitarian, and I really didn't think that was something that needed to be put across from the round church area.
mhm,
They have since come back with some renderings of what they do in Louisiana, specifically in New Orleans, where they build pump stations that are elevated. They build them out of a decorative block. They can make them look much better than the first rendering, but it would still be a rather large structure sticking up right there. And
so it would be better to put behind my wall where I live, right?
the one, because of the elevations,
Where is, I don't wanna.
and I'm going just by what the engineers have said. The one that would be behind your property would only have to be 2 to 3 feet above ground.
Yeah,
We would not have to have, because it's not in the floodplain according to the engineers, we would not have to have a generator, standby generator, on site. And it would be a much different structure. And that was one, when that option came about, that was one of the things we looked at. And that's really how we got to where we are. The other two options are not looking at a structure 9 feet sticking up out of the ground. And the one where it currently is that, and that's where we have the other two options. So that's what we're discussing, where we wanna, I guess, spend the money or not.
So is it just I'm sorry, is it just a visual that you're concerned about, or is there more than?
no, it's also the traffic that's going to be going back there, okay? And, I mean, I'm gonna see it all the time. Okay, I understand. And the road floods no matter what. When we have a flood, the road floods. Back to that part, although they claimed it didn't flood there on that particular thing. But that's beside the point. That road always floods, no matter what, from Bridge Street back Old Portland Court. Okay? So I didn't see, other than them saying the parcel of land where they're planning on putting it does not flood. I disagree with that, but I don't have any proof until I take a picture.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm going by is what the engineers looked at the elevations for where we were looking back
Okay,
on John's part. And it is out of the 100-year, according to them, it's out of the 100-year flood, but it is not out of the 500-year flood.
Exactly, what does that mean? In 100 years, it's not gonna flood, or what does that mean?
Possibility.
It's the possibility.
There's a
that we
1%
would have a major,
chance per year
right.
that it could flood. Do we have any sense of what Gary would want for that other property? Has he put anything on the table or?
Well, there's also, we would have to talk to, it is, he brought that one forward when we started looking at
Yeah,
alternatives. He has not said. But the other thing that has been brought up is, we need to talk to the state about bridge access.
yeah.
And is it fall in what they consider they need for, if the bridge ever was in dire straits?
The
and they need-
existing one, or if we did one in the new spot?
If in that
And the
Gary.
second spot, Gary spot.
Do we need to do,
This is the whole packet on it. I'll email it to you so you can.
feels like we need to do that survey anyway.
I think Larry originally bought that property to keep
Right.
us from.
To look at the road, well, so
Yeah,
to be clear,
I
they would
think so
just
too.
determine ownership of.
This is Miss
Right.
Foley's house,
Yeah.
and they're looking at like right here.
Right.
And what she's saying is
So I
like
guess,
this
you know,
road
where does
always.
the commission want to go? Do we want to explore the
You know,
survey of the road first?
You know,
Do we want
this
to
stuff
explore
would be in
the
their backyard.
test pits both
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, one before the other? Bart had suggested put the road first. And
Gary's-
that comes back with,
Or the road, yeah.
but we've also heard from Ms. Polly.
But hearing from Miss Polly and her saying that she believes the deed is not. Is the road in your deed, the old Brooklyn Court? Do you know? The deed for Old Brooklyn Court,
When we bought the house, the deed said that Vilnius was on one side. And I believe it was Mary Wortham behind us.
mm-hmm,
And then it also said something about Far or Barber.
Yep.
That was on his side.
Yep.
And it was not put in there. That was, we assumed it was our road. Because we've always been taking care of it. Although when we did move in, we moved land like us. It was plowed for Liz Villano, who lived in the back, but by Red Lawns. But once we moved in, there was no more plowing done.
By the town?
That was the town at that time. But then once we moved in, it was stopped. Okay, and we took care of the road all the time. When the Irene flooded, it flooded out, we repaired the road.
Well, probably would be good to know that, I guess. Anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's enough historical ambiguity that we should try to clear it up.
Right.
I guess I'm inclined to. Explore the bridge option. Up by Gary's and see if that's even doable. Mostly because that's sort of like
It doesn't.
a
flood
dead
there.
piece of land, like nobody does anything with that. It's kind of. And if anything, maybe if we were in jurisdiction of it and we had an access road, we could make it look a little prettier. Put some trees there and like dress it up, so it was like, I mean, like that is, when you drive over, that's like the gateway into looking into Richmond, like if we had our little pump station there, we could do a little landscaping,
Stuff.
yeah.
Well, I mean, the telephone companies, power companies have invested in architectural improvements to these things in the past. They make it look more residential than a piece of industrial hardware.
I think there's two parts to this, is we need to clarify, Gary's got to give us a number, I think. What we spend, I mean, I don't think he's gonna come up and say, all right, I want $1 million for this, but it seems two parts. Approve the $4,000. But start discussions with Gary, what does he want, how much does he want to separate from that piece of property? I mean,
But if there's ledge there, it's moot, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So that, for that piece of property, that would be the proverbial fork in the road, it seems.
But you mentioned a number about how deep that structure would need to be.
I think it would have to be to get the flow there. It would have to be in the 45, I think.
Below ground.
But
Below ground, that's
yeah,
substantial right next to the river. You'd probably have to put caissons in.
yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, you have to do that anyway, but
Yeah,
the concern is that if you go down 20 feet and you got bedrock,
yeah,
then you're mute.
yeah. So south of the river, everything gravity flows to this pump station where it goes through a force main back to the water treatment plant from
Yeah.
that spot.
Yeah.
Which is hanging underneath the bridge, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. No, it's not unusual to do that. I mean,
But it is I mean, that is also a consideration. Part of this project would be to relocate that force main under the bridge because it is hanging very low. It has been damaged twice.
by ice scour.
By, like,
Trees.
Trees and.
Yeah, trees getting.
Basically, the trees come down and they get wedged between the pipe and the bridge. And they hang there going like this. And we've actually, I mean, it had a pretty good kink. We were very lucky that it didn't break and rupture. But it's 82,000. The bill for repairs, because the staging cost to get to it costs about 30.
So what do we,
What do you want to explore?
yeah,
Full disclosure, I think we do it where it already is. I know that's not the most popular, but like that's my preferred.
we don't really have to spend any other money other than,
We have the
We
site.
have,
Yeah.
we have the site. I feel like, yeah, it's gonna be ugly, but like, sorry, we gotta get your shit across the bridge.
And truthfully, if you look at the renderings that they showed from New Orleans, they are not as ugly as the
They could
ones
be.
that they showed us.
Yeah,
They were a block building. They looked kind of
Yeah.
decent. It's just, don't get me wrong, it's still gonna be 9 feet of concrete.
we could hire someone to paint a pretty mural on it, like they did in Jeffersonville.
Silos.
We do just have to make sure too, like zoning that
Right.
we build is flood approved.
Right.
Yeah.
There's, and that site is gonna be significantly more expensive.
It's gonna be a lot more expensive because we have to
So,
oh,
extricate the old one.
because yeah,
We're gonna end up in Bridge Street. You know, cause there's no off-site there. We don't own enough.
I already gave you 10 feet.
right. I think that.
But we don't,
To keep
we,
it operational while you're doing construction.
yeah,
at the exact
and we
same
have to
time,
keep it
It's
operational.
gonna be a little.
We can't tell Stone Corral and that side of the river, well, you guys gotta hold it.
Yeah, so that's where just, I mean, well, I think exploring a couple options is probably prudent to then look at,
I
okay,
agree.
what's the viability of the other two options? What's the total cost? What are the pros and cons? Then you'll have a little bit better idea of all of the things on these three options.
Yeah.
would it be unprudent to just go ahead and do both? What we're talking about, the survey, so you do know, as well as moving forward doing the.
This is what it would look like.
I mean, that's what,
That-
yeah, what suggests is just like, it's.
Is that the
it's like
big
$6,000.
Right.
It's not. a
Yeah.
lot.
Pedestal.
But
You could have some things, and then you
That's
have
the-
more evidence.
that could be
and
the
there's
judge or
key
something,
points
you
on each
put a
each
wrapper
site,
around it that
and
made
then
it
they both come
attractive.
back.
Yeah.
Well, you're limited what you can do there because it's floodplain
It's up options.
Right.
And
by the,
and if we
by
really-
the zoning.
Vegetation.
You do,
But
there's
like,
always,
you're
there's
not-
always an aesthetic solution.
Yeah.
There's always some way to make it a little more attractive.
Yeah.
But the renderings from New Orleans were more attractive than that one.
Would somebody be willing to make a motion to move forward on the survey as well as the geotechnical boring for approximately 6,000?
Yeah, I mean, they got a quote for like 2,200, but I would say, let's go at least 4,000 just to make sure in case that quote goes up.
That's the drilling.
And the survey.
Yep, so so the quote on the drilling was like 2,275,
Oh.
but I would say, give me 4,000 in case there's some
Okay.
changes on that. And the quote for
Chris Haggerty was 1,500.
He was like 1452 or whatever, and I'm like,
1,500.
give me 1,500, and he'll probably come in at about that, I imagine,
So maybe a motion not to exceed 6,000
or yeah, 6,000 will probably get it done for both.
I'll make a motion to do the drilling for the ledge, but it's past my bedtime, so I'm not including the motion for the Chris Haggerty.
okay.
Because I don't understand why we're gonna do that if we're not,
Because it helps us move forward. If this doesn't work out, then we've pushed this out maybe another month or 2 or 3 months.
so then can't we, if we find out it's all ledge, then can't we talk about it again when it comes back up?
In a couple months or,
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
just
I mean,
delays getting information on it, but we
Right.
could, yeah.
I think it's plausible to say what is to put them in sequence, that's what
Right.
they're saying, first, second, third. Let's pursue one, and then if it doesn't work, go to number 2. If
Immediately.
it doesn't work, go to number
Yeah.
3.
okay. Does that sound like a better motion to?
Yes, because it just seems like we might spend the money to have Chris Haggerty come so that we can find out that,
Right,
A, we're not gonna use the place and the pulleys on the road. So we've now spent $1,500 to have information that like, we could probably look the deed up in the
Well, I think.
town office, can we?
It's
I think it's more complicated.
complicated.
It goes back like 100+ years. The town did have.
It's
If
yeah.
it was that easy, we'd know.
And when is a road a road?
Yeah,
Right, and well, who owns the road, right? It's a strip of land like Mary Drive in some respects, like. That's where I thought $1,500 from Chris was fairly a good price. to
I
get
think
that
it's a
figured
good
out.
price. I just think it's maybe not our top option.
If you want to explore the Bresser property first, and then if that comes back positive, then you move forward, and if not, then we go to plan B, like, whatever you guys want to do.
I think it's a good idea to put them in an order and at least start there. So what is the board's preference? We have 3 sites. Which is your first preference?
My first preference would be either on the road or your new proposed spot of Gary's. Those would be my personal preferences.
Well,
I don't know what other
then,
people's are.
it's what the
anybody else?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Aaron, at least from the perspective of the Gary site and the current site are both on the line. If we go behind her house, you're gonna have to bring lines around behind, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna have other in-ground utility work. So I would second the motion to allocate $6,000 for engineering fees to be spent in order or something like that. Is that what you agreed to?
I think I got hustled into that. I was just gonna do the dresser and
well.
the Bridge Street, but yeah, we could do
We'll
that.
come back to that, as soon as we know, we'll come back to the commission, it
Yeah.
probably won't
Yeah.
get till later in April.
Okay,
We'll figure that out, and then you'll have more information on Bresser, and you can make a
I-
decision on the
Yeah.
property later.
I second the motion to conduct ledge probes on the Bresser property then.
Okay.
So the motion is to do whatever, geotechnical drilling of the Bresser property.
Yeah.
And Greg has seconded it. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Please state your name and how you vote.
Bard, aye.
Aaron, I.
Greg, aye.
David, aye.
Morgan, aye. Motion passes. Okay.
Are you?
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Let's look at next agenda quick,
Mhm.
Agenda.
just because I think there are some things on here like that we're not gonna be ready for next week. I want to get opinions from you guys about where we want to go and talk about the housing committee.
yeah.
So. Up here.
Those are long meetings to listen to while you're packing eggs.
Well, that's what,
What are long meetings?
The housing committee
No,
meetings.
I have never.
they're I thought they were supposed to get to you
Well,
with,
they have,
Well,
so we're
They
gonna
are.
give them,
Yeah.
they have 20 minutes. That's all they're gonna get. I've told them that. And I'll reiterate it. But I think as Josh probably going to tell you is they asked a bunch of questions and Steve, Josh and I got together and we responded to them. And that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna go through that in meeting 1 with the understanding that, at 20 minutes,
Yeah.
We'll have to come back in 3 months.
They, from what I've been watching in the meetings, and they've been talking about this meeting with the water and sewer for about half of their 2-hour meetings, the last 2 or 3 of them. And they have a lot of questions for us about how we have made our ordinances and how they're obviously like trying to increase housing
Right.
in Richmond, and they're a lot of their discussions happen around like, why are we not looking to get new users and increasing our ratepayer base by getting new users? And there's a lot of question about how we make the ordinances that we have and how we make the sort of rules that we have, which as I'm watching it, I'm like,
So we don't, I mean, it's not.
did that 30, like, we have no freaking idea.
Right, well, not only that, I mean, it definitely is not the Water and Sewer Commission's responsibility to go out and find new development, but I wouldn't think it's the select board either, is it? I mean,
Ordinances, yeah, so I think there is a history here of at least 50 years of if you want to extend the line to your house, you pay for it.
Mhm.
That has been, here is oral history of people who've lived in town, like just outside the system. Why that was, it was clearly, from what I perceive, to put the burden of the extension on the cost on the people who benefit from it. There is an argument to be made that there's an economy of scale, but I'm back to, well, let's take the gateway extension. So if it costs you $2 million to go out there and you get 5 customers, in about 100 years, you might pay it off. So it just like part of it is the pro forma, like how much is it going to cost? And then what new revenues do you get? Because if it's part of the system, the current users' costs go up immediately. As soon as it's built, you have to pay for it, whether it's out of reserve funds or loans. So the current users would be paying for it. And for what it's worth, there have been iterations of the Water Sewer Commission for decades. It said, no, it's on the developer or the builder, whoever's doing that's the benefit. I will say now there's the new chip stuff where you can make an agreement with a developer that part of your taxes, but again, that's somewhat fraught because some people are not fans of it. Like, so now that person's taxes will pay for their infrastructure. That's not how it worked for me.
Mhm.
That's unfair.
Well, that's
So-
the other half of their meeting. They talk about CHIP and how they could use CHIP to expand the water and sewer. And I'm like,
There's also the fact that Richmond, just by geography, is not, expansion is very hard here.
yes,
We're not Heinsberg.
no,
We're not Heinsberg, we're not Williston that had a lot of flat, open land. We're not a Shelburne. It's a lot of pump stations. And,
a lot
pump
of flooded
station,
land,
huh?
a lot of flooded land too.
And a lot of flooded land. So expansion of the system comes at a cost.
mhm,
And like Bart says, it typically has fallen on the current ratepayers for that expansion. And, how can we justify, 2 million to get to the interstate and then add 100 people, 100 users? It's the scale of.
Well, I mean, you end up where everybody else in Chittenden County has ended up, and that's, you start putting up a bunch of 40-unit apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the people of Richmond are that enthusiastic about that.
Right.
So I think we might be drifting into
Yeah.
discussion. of
Yeah.
project.
No,
So, no, so I
Yeah.
think that these are all good things we'll
Yeah.
talk about with the housing committee. So maybe where we start is they submitted those questions, the 3 of us sat back, gave them responses. We can review those questions with them and then see what other questions they have that come up in the meeting. We might have some answers. We might have to get back to them on some. But
Okay,
at least it sort of starts the conversation. It's the next steps. Does that sound good for housing committee at the next agenda?
mhm.
Yeah.
They're also planning how they're going to put our upgrade out to the community
20
and advertise it. So we also need to bring them some information about the pump station the one, well, really what we were just talking about, they talk a lot about that pump station and how they can help us convince people to get a bigger pump station to support the housing they want to put on the side of the bridge.
So they can, so. I
So
think-
those are like numbers we might need to have to be
So-
able to
So that
say,
question was asked and I answered that for them. as far
Okay.
as
He answered
design,
that.
what it's designed for and how much expansion.
Yeah.
And it allows for
A
a
ton.
I
ton.
think a couple hundred as it's currently designed. I'd have to look back at the exact numbers, but I think without any additional formal questions submitted to them at this point, submitted to us, we answer the questions, we review the questions we gave them, and then say, okay, you've got 5 more questions. We'll talk about that.
At the next one, okay.
Okay, so then the next question I have for you guys, I think the budget and the septage rates, I think we wait on those till April 20th, because we won't have user rates data to be able to set rates until
Be
April
really
20th.
close.
What's that?
It'll be cutting it close.
Yeah, it's not that, but we won't have anything by April, we won't have the ability to get sample rates by next week. So I think we can do that the 20th.
Okay.
And last year, we ended up having our annual meeting, I think the first meeting in June. So we can bump out a little bit. We've got time if you guys are okay with bumping those. And then we did want to talk about funding alternatives for wastewater 20-year upgrade. Maybe we just did a lot of that tonight.
Yeah.
Maybe I will, if I have feedback from Royal Tanner and if they can join the meeting, I'll invite them.
Nice.
If not, I think it'll probably be April 20th, which will be another longer meeting. So that's gonna give us really superintendent's report that we wanted to spend more time on. And the housing committee, so we could start at 6 and try to get it all in, or we could start at 5:30, knowing that housing is probably gonna go longer than 20 minutes. So what's the pleasure of the commission?
It doesn't matter. The septage, could we look at the septage rates? Could you find the information on what other people's septage rates are compared to ours? And we could just look at them next week so we could noodle on them a
So
little
the
before the next
Last
meeting.
time it
20th?
was done was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I can tell you it varies from 6.5 cents to 48 cents.
Okay.
There's not a sheet that's put out, or do we have? a sheet?
Yeah,
Eat
I'll
last
have to
time,
find
but-
it.
If you
and-
can,
and-
if you have that by the end of this week, we'll add septic rates on.
Yeah.
And if not, then we'll look at that at the next meeting, but that's a
But
good.
the-
point.
Just so we can like look at them and kind of see where we
The
land.
state, I know the state average is 8.9
Okay,
and we're at 8.5.
okay.
So we'll add that if we have rates to compare, and we will add a treatment upgrade if we have Will Tanner.
And to that point about where the rates are, it's not just what the rates are, where are they proximal to us? Because people aren't coming from White River
Right.
for the drop off here. And I'm also sensitive if the range is really as high as 48 cents. If they
Well, that
calculate
48
the
cents is kind of an outlier. It's, they're charging that just if you really want to bring it here, we'll take it.
They don't want septic.
Yeah.
No, my point is, if that's used in the calculation of an average, it has a disproportionate effect on the average.
hope
Yeah.
they're throwing that
So
out.
to throw that out, maybe the average is really.
I think they
8.5
did
cents.
throw out the high and the low, but I'm not 100% sure.
All right, so
Okay.
for next agenda, maybe we do start 5:30. We have housing committee, we have a number of other regular items. We might have some treatment facility discussions. But I don't know. I think it's good. We've had a lot to talk about lately.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we just spent 2.5 hours at this meeting too. So if you guys are all good with 5:30, it might be worthwhile to get
Fine
some
by me.
breathing room.
What day is it?
Week from today, April 6th.
Oh, joy.
It'll be the day after Easter. I'll bring some candy.
So we'll have plenty of
Be all
candy.
sugared up.
Yeah.
Bring some eggs.
All right,
All right,
thanks, everybody.
do we need to make a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second that motion.
Please state your name.
Arne?
Aaron and I.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Aye. Meeting
Thanks, y'all.
adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
You were stuck.